Here we are at Windmill Hill. What a wreck. This is part of the patent style striking gear for the automatic governor, or the override for it. The rim is rotted away now. Floor of the Roundhouse. You can see the first floor of the Roundhouse is very heavily timbered. It may have had millstones on that floor at one time. See also the massive brick piers that carry the mill. It's not actually possible to gain access to the floor above from inside. There's an external staircase for that. Looking at the floor above, here is the definite position for a millstone. Right near the wall, you can see the two little hangers there for part of the tentering gear. Just below, sticking out of the pier, is what looks like the spur beam for the bottom bearing of governor. I've now gained access to the first floor. You see the piers actually come up through the floor a bit. There are the cross trees, quarter bars, and some fairly hefty framing between the quarter bars, presumably for lifting the millstones or something. Looking upwards, the quarter bars meet the post, and you can see reinforcing iron strips let into the post. And above that, the shears, both of which appear to have broken as the mill has sagged. See some wood wares have been coach screwed on there. Usual type of bird's mouth joint with the strap. The trestle being in quite good condition by the look of it. See that cross tree is numbered. Quite a lot of the tin has come off the Roundhouse roof here, so you can see daylight between the boards. There's some more of the framing for lifting millstones or whatever, and there's a bin up there, I think, as well. Right up in the roof of the Roundhouse. This end of the post with wedges bearing against housings cut in the cross trees for reinforcement, and an iron band round. The post itself showing some woodworm on the sapwood, but generally pretty sound. As usual, a few shakes in it. Saw little burn marks on it as well. I don't know quite what that means. The bottom end of the enormous steps and the sail pole, which is now broken off. Presumably the iron cladding got rusty and let the water through and rotted it. Quite a long way up that ladder, and the top two rungs are missing, so it's going to be a bit of fun getting up in there. See the way the corner posts are bearing on the Roundhouse roof. After a bit of a struggle, there's the post. And there once again the top end of those iron reinforcing strips. The body framing is in terrible shape. I'll just pan over. That should be the right hand lower side girt, which is completely non-existent. Disappeared the rear end of it completely. The forward end is just about still there, and of course that's a bit essential because most of the weight is being taken on the sag irons, one of which you can see there rising up to the crown tree, disappears behind that bin. The other sag iron, which is bolted, there's an eye bolt that passes through the inner threshold, and it rises up in the normal way past a shattered window, to the crown tree. There it is, another eye bolt through the crown tree. Now those are what is holding it up, because you can see above that there's very little left of the side girt, and this is the same on both sides, so it's the sag irons that are holding it up. Unfortunately, they tend to compress the bottom of the mill together, and that force should normally be resisted by the lower side girt, but that is missing. Therefore, this side of the mill is starting to bow inwards. It could have gone outwards, but it's chosen to go inwards. There's a nice window post. It was nice till it got very rotten. Here's a nicer one. You can see the bottom end is jowled out and abutments cut in the braces. Butt against that jowling. It rises up. See one of the sag iron on this side. Also the tenter screw there of the rear set of stones. And that rises right up till it meets the side girt, or what's left of it. But there is practically nothing left. It's held on by a couple of iron straps. See there part of the tentering gear, the tail stones. That's the end of the bray with an L-shaped screw. And behind it, a small grain cleaner suspended from the crown tree. How it was driven, I'm not too sure. There's a V-belt pulley on the left-hand end of the spindle. There's a tremendous bow upwards on this floor, caused by the sagging of the mill. Perhaps see that. Whole of the floor rising to the foot of the post. Up at the forward end there, there's a blower which has come adrift, and also some bins to receive meal from the headstone. So look at this blower. I think this probably extracted dust from that grain cleaner. It's just lying on the floor now. And here's a good bit of repair work. See these pieces of string tied round the forward sag iron? They hold the breast of the mill in, believe it or not. A bit of light flare there, but you can perhaps see them going out through holes in the front. I think they hold the front corner post on or something. It seems to be the sum total of the repairs that have been done to this mill since I was last here. Quite a nice horse from the millstones with sort of thickened part with a nicely moulded jowl on it, and double tenon at one end, and then reducing down the other end. There's a piece of wood nailed on there for a drag stick to keep the eye of the stone clear. Now here is the cast iron bridge tree of the headstones. The bray seems to be missing, but there's the iron bridge tree. It's on an iron hanger, but above, of course, the stone is missing. You can see right through the floor. This mill has horizontal studding in the breast, which carries vertical boards, and then the weather boards were laid upon that. And it also has this V arrangement of tie rods, which are fixed to a what appears to be a cast iron, maybe a wrought iron plate, on the prick post, and the rods rise up at an angle. There's some buckles for tightening them. They rise up and pass through the ends of the weather beam upstairs. Tends to stop the weather beam tilting downwards in the middle. Sag irons on the right hand side of the mill are rather interesting because they're cranked. There we are, they bend because something gets in the way. I don't know exactly what that bin there was for. It may have been probably something to do with the steam mill use, but anyway it got in the way, and they've had to crank the sag iron, and it's prevented from straightening up by these extra irons which are coach screwed to the forward corner post. They've done the same thing. There we are, this is the right hand side rear end, and there we are again, these cranked sag irons with the retainers. They managed to get the retainer right on the bend of the crank here, which they couldn't do at the forward end. There's another tie rod there holding the extension on. And here we have the jumper coming down from the wire machine above. Not often you see these. And moving up a bit further, whoops, we've got the governor just peeping out there on a nice curved bracket. Above that, the bridge tree for the tail stones, and that bears a name, which the camera is eventually focusing on. It's Medhurst anyway. Can't read it very well, it's so corroded. Perhaps we'll rack back a bit to see if we can see it better. Perhaps you can see it on the TV screen, I can't read it. And there's the bridge tree with an integral centering screws for the bearing, and that is carried on a wooden bray. There we are, appears to be oak, and that is carried on an iron hanger, cast iron hanger, adjusted with wedges. It was rather a good one because it combines a weight above the collar, casting low. The steelyard cranks over the bridge tree, goes across over there where it meets the brae. Tail bedstone, which appears to be a French one. There's no runner on it, I remember from last time, but it's set up on little bearers with wedges, sort of diamond-wise to the main beam. Looking rearwards on the mill floor, it's just an utter shambles. The tail of the mill's got very little boarding on, and the framing isn't particularly sound. There's that jumper again. And now looking up through the hole where the headstones were, and then you can see the brake wheel, which is, and what remains of the brake. It's a bit rotten at that point. That's the top bearing for the Quant, which is serving as a resting point for one of the RSJs that are currently holding the mill up. Unfortunately, we can't gain access to the stone floor because the ladder's gone, and I might be able to find something to climb up on a bit later. You can see the broken side girt there, and also a transverse RSJ resting on a vertical half pole prop. Also a little bit of the iron mortise tail wheel up there. Surprise, surprise, somebody's come up with a ladder, so here we are upstairs. There's the tail bedstone, and the tail runner, which is now planted on the crown tree, acting as part of the support system. There's a stone nut. That's Quant lying to one side. Here's this marvellous repair job again, holding the rest of the mill on. Joint between the left-hand corner post and the forward end of the side girt. Awful lot of daylight through there. You can see that what remains of the side girt is rolled outwards. Crown tree with the side girt. As you can see, there's practically nothing of the side girt left. Now this side girt has had plates on it at one time which have been removed. You can see the bolts sticking out, the nuts on it. That's one of the props that are holding it up, and there's, following the side girt rearwards, there we are, you can see the bolts again. And there's the part of the wire machine drive. Step up gearing. Leave it the first time. Here once again is the junction between the crown tree and the side girt. You can see where the sag irons, the eye bolts holding the sag irons, come through. There's also a cramp around the end of the crown tree, but there is nothing left of the side girt. There's a short, fairly short, light iron plate over the top of it, but there is literally no strength in that. So the weight of the mill is being to some extent carried via these posts on these transverse RSJs, which are lightly strapped to the upper side girts and travel transversely across. And the one below goes longitudinally. There's a cramp round those, and that lot is carried on this forest of props which are resting on the tail runner stone. And you can see they're not particularly substantial, and there's practically nothing in the way of bracing to stop them parallelogramming over. There's nothing to stop the mill going over sideways, because the crown tree could just burst through the side of the mill at any time. Because the side girts have no lateral strength at all. Is in this mill. Here's some guide rollers for the belt, which came back to drive the wire machine. Nice wooden rollers in the frame. Cross. This is the cross for the striking gear, which is resting on the stone floor forward. Just above windshaft level, and there is the pinion that engages the brake wheel teeth. The camera's not focusing. It doesn't like that, it can't see properly. Yeah, it's focusing a bit better, and that's the cross shaft, which goes across underneath the wind shaft. Solid belt pulley. The wire machine, there's a step-up drive, and the shaft going in. The actual cylinder's missing, but there's the spindle and the arms that carry the brushes. One of those is a bit broken, the other one's okay. And it tilts down with the usual partitions looking down into the bottom. There we are, there's the partitions in the bottom, the different grades. There's a junction of the right-hand side girt with the corner post. Not too bad in condition. There's some dates, there were some initials rather, carved on it. And once again these bolts, which seem to suggest that it had a metal plate on at one side for strength. And when it gets to the side girt, to the crown tree, good heavens, look what it's done. In fact, the side girt, far from humping up, is actually bowing downwards. It's completely broken in the middle. That end of the crown tree is fairly medium. There's a bit of round timber resting on that. I don't know quite where that's come from. I don't remember seeing that in here last time. Perhaps somebody was trying to do some repair work with it. Oh, we're now focusing in a bit on the tail wheel. There we are, it's an iron mortise tail wheel, wooden teeth, made in two halves, as you can see, connected by bolts. There it goes, you can see the brake wheel and the pistons. Quite thin and is round. Now this did have wooden cladding on it at some time. You can see the iron is still fairly bright, but that has been removed since my last visit. Goodness knows who took that off and why. The wind shaft, and there's the pulley that drove the governor mechanism, which has now been taken over to Clayton, and I believe is in use there. And tracking back a bit, there's the end of the striking rod, and the pinion, the rack itself, is missing. And going across is a pair of bevels over in the corner there, which turn the drive to a right angle, and the striking wheels on the back of the mill. The mill has deteriorated a lot since my last visit. You can see this window had been repaired, I believe, at one time. It's now a gaping hole, and it's letting even more rain in on the end of the crown tree. Not doing it any good. And the stone floor is beginning to come adrift a bit from the crown tree. It's actually shifted back a bit. The other quant is in the mill. Here it is. So there's really quite a lot here. Up in the top, in the roof space, there's the sack hoist in the peak of the roof. The roof's in good order. It's the best bit of the mill, really. There's the power takeoff for the sack hoist. An iron mortise gear engaging the inside of the brake wheel teeth. And below that, the various partitioned bins. Still there, they got a bit battered, but there we are. Quite a nice atmosphere up here. It hasn't really changed much since I was working. Well, until you look behind you, anyway. It's a different story. Here's the feed bin for the wire machine, and the rear end of the mill is completely denuded of boards here. Shows a nice view down the road. It's a lovely day. Let's put the date up, just so we should know. There we are. 13th of March, and it's like the middle of summer. God come to meet her here, so I better break off from filming a minute and go down and have a word with them. Oh, again, the shadows are starting to lengthen. We've had our talk downstairs, and there's a few flies dancing in the evening sunshine. View of the brake wheel. Fast barn construction. The floor of the mill is pretty substantially bordered with thick boards. They must be about 2.5 inches thick, and I think they're actually forming part of the structure, stiffening it. This is the hole where the headstones have been taken out. This is the left-hand corner post, reinforced with bits of 2-inch timber spiked on. Alright, here we go. It's starting to go down again. See a slight shift of the cladding as the mill has sunk onto the roundhouse. Looking higher up, you can see the canister. Now you notice that there is a sort of box sticking out round the canister. This was a feature of Sussex mills, of which not many survive now. I think the chair block stood forwards on the weather beam and side, showing where the lower side girth has rotted away and broken, hanging out of its mortise. The forward section still in place. And the boarding actually abutting the roof of the roundhouse is flat boarding rather than weatherboards, where the mill was sheeted right down and over the roof when it was fixed to become a steam mill. The roof now is multi-sided, 8-sided I think, whereas before it would have been round.
You certainly stand on that level and you see you can get where those beams actually cross.
The iron sheeting disappearing and rusting through. This is a view of bits of sheet metal that have torn off the mill. It's quite a substantial pile. They've all been neatly folded up and put down by a garage. The last view of Windmill Hill Mill. Against the setting sun. So next I've got to get in that car and brave the horrors of the Dartford tunnel.